A phenomenon that I talked about briefly in the video Grusha and Gender is that of the gender non-conforming man who transitions from male to female. While it's not every single feminine man who becomes a woman, that would be an obviously silly claim to assert, there's a large population of trans women who experiment in those spaces before transition. That's part of what made Bridget's transition feel so beautiful and natural, though at the time I was simply excited at something like that being handled so tactfully in a video game, a space that is typically not kind to people like me. This brings me to the topic of today's video, Grusha. Grusha is one of the gym leaders in the latest Pokémon game, Scarlet and Violet, which has been a pretty surprising game for a lot of reasons. For the first, it made me care about a Pokémon game for the first time since I was 14, which I honestly thought was impossible. The writing in this game is just a lot better than I usually expect from Pokémon. For the second, though, is that there are a lot of queer-coded characters. I mean, it's pretty easy to write off Nimona being extremely gay for the player characters, them just forgetting to program the rival differently for the female main character. It's happened before in Pokemon, but she's definitely not the only one. Look at Penny, for God's sake. She literally wears programmer socks and loves Sylveon, which is the Pokemon with the trans colors. I'm sorry, but screaming "become who you truly want to be" while terastalizing a Sylveon during your boss fight is simply not cis-person behavior. There's also whatever the fuck is going on with Rika. Love the trans mask lesbian energy there. Grusha, however, is the character that I came away with the most gendered thoughts about. Grusha is a former snowboarder who lives in the mountains and is the ice-type gym leader of the region, and also one of the harder fights in the game. Grusha is also, however, extremely feminine. He's often mistaken for a cis girl by new players. This is never directly commented on in-game, interestingly enough, despite it being extremely obvious. While that alone wouldn't really mean anything, Grusha also wears a scarf over his face and covers his chin as much as possible in order to keep it from being seen. Perhaps he feels extremely self-conscious about his jawline. So obviously it's a Pokemon game, which means there isn't that much variation in jawlines. Maybe he just feels as if his is particularly masculine. The jawline is often a source of dysphoria for many trans girls, so I can completely understand this. Of course, there's the other more pressing thing to discuss about Grusha's scarf. It's literally the colors of the trans flag. I don't really know what else to say there. Grusha being a trans femme egg as a headcanon isn't particularly revelatory or frankly very interesting idea on its own. I just supplied all the evidence for it in a very small time frame. What interests me more though is where this headcanon comes from. What the motivation for headcanons like this is. And that stems from a lot of trans femme people spending a lot of time as gender non-conforming men in communities dedicated to those ideas. I should know, I was one of them. I have friends who were too. It's a very common phenomenon to expect that you're not trans, just a boy who likes to dress femininely. And again, this is not to say that every man who likes to dress femininely is a woman, but it is to say that this is a very common trend. It's something I should have discussed more in the Bridget video. That arc is so resonant partially because it mirrors the experiences of so many trans femme people who see themselves in that storyline. So that's what I think Grusha represents to me. Someone who's experimenting with their identity, which ends up hitting home with a lot of trans femme people in the audience because it mirrors a part of our journey that a lot of us had gone through. However, I don't think that means that other queer interpretations of Grusha are invalid. I might see her as a trans girl who has yet to awaken, but some might see him as a trans boy who just happens to be feminine. Or maybe he's just a cis guy who likes to wear makeup. Whatever the case, Grusha is kind of the most gender character in the game, and it's something I find really special. A lot of queer fans had the chance to project their own experiences onto him. This has been Arcade Everlasting, who finds that Pokemon character designs tend to be a lot more appealing than the games themselves, signing off. Thank you for watching.